Sorry about that. Part 2 of the second part. I had a phone call. Wasn't anticipating that. I'm so sorry, boys and girls. So, they're staying at the Village Inn. They're going to, what you don't know yet, you'll find out when I read it. They're going to be at the second floor. They're going to be able to see her bedroom because the mansion's up on top of the hill. He tells her that she's to stay up till the doctor comes home. When the doctor comes home, she's saying, oh, I've got a really bad headache. I need to go to my bedroom. So she goes into her bedroom and stays there. Now, she's not supposed to signal them early because he'll still be awake in the living room and he'll see them and stuff. So she is to wait till she hears the doctor go into his bedroom. When she hears him go to his bedroom, whatever time that might be, she's to open up her window and put a candle in her window as a signal to Holmes and Watson so they can come up. When she does that, she is to immediately get her stuff that she'll need, for the morning or whatever, and go to her old bedroom, the one not next to the doctor's bedroom, her old bedroom, and do it really quietly. While she's gone, of course, Watson Holmes going to sneak through the window and go into her bedroom, her sister's old bedroom. All right. Then for pity's sake, this is her talking. Then for pity's sake, tell me, what was the cause of my sister's death? I should prefer to have clearer proof before I speak. You can at least tell me whether my own thought is correct, and if she died from some sudden fright, or like she died from being frightened to death. No, I do not think so. I think that there was probably some more tangible cause. And now, Miss Stoner, we must leave you, for if Dr. Roylott returned and saw us, our journey would be in vain. Goodbye and be brave, for if you will do what I've told you, you may rest assured that we shall soon drive away the dangers that threaten you. Sherlock Holmes and I had no difficulty in engaging a bedroom and sitting room in the town inn. They were on the upper floor, and from our window we could command a view of the avenue gate and of the inhabited wing of Stoke Moran Manor House. At dusk, we saw Dr. Grimsby Roylott drive past, his huge form looming up beside the little figure of the lad who drove him. The boy had some slight difficulty in undoing the heavy iron gates, and we heard the hoarse roar of the doctor's voice and saw the fury which he shook his clenched fist at the boy. The trap, remember the trap is a wagon, drove on, and a few minutes later we saw a sudden light spring up among the trees as the lamp was lit in one of the sitting rooms. Do you know, Watson, said Holmes, I have really some scruples as to taking you tonight. There is a distinct element of danger. Can I be of assistance, Holmes? Your presence may be invaluable. Then I shall certainly come, sir. It is very kind of you, Watson. You speak of danger, Holmes. You have evidently seen more in these rooms than was visible to me. No, but I fancy that I may have deduced a little more. I imagine you saw all that I did. I saw nothing remarkable save the bell rope, and what purpose that could answer, I confess, is more than I can imagine. You saw the ventilator, too. Yes, but I do not think that's very unusual thing to have a small opening between two rooms. It was so small a rat could hardly pass through. I knew we would find a ventilator before ever we came to Stoke Moran. My dear Holmes! Oh, yes, I did. You remember in her statement she said that her sister could smell Dr. Roylott's cigar? Now, of course, that suggests at once that there must be communication between the two rooms. It could only be a small one, or it could have been remarked upon at the coroner's inquiry. I deduced a ventilator. So he knew there had to be an opening between the two bedrooms, but if it was bigger than like a normal hole, like a little hole ventilator, the police would have written about it in the inquiry, and there was nothing written about it. But what harm can there be in that? Well, there is at least a curious coincidence of dates. A ventilator is made, a cord is hung, and a lady who sleeps in the bed dies. Does that not strike you as odd? I cannot yet see a connection. Did you observe anything very peculiar about the bed? No. It was clamped to the floor. Her sister's bed was nailed to the floor where it can't move. It will always have to be next to the bell rope. Think about that. The bed is clamped to the floor. It's nailed to the floor. It must always be in the same relative position to the ventilator and to the rope, for so we may call it, since it was clearly never meant to be a bell pull. So now Holmes not even going to get, he's like, it's made for a rope. It's not made for a bell pull. Holmes, I cried. I seem to see dimly what you are hinting at. We are only just in time to prevent some subtle and horrible crime. Subtle enough and horrible enough. When a doctor does go wrong, he is the first of criminals. He has nerve and he has knowledge. Palmer and Pritchard were among the heads of their profession. This man strikes even deeper. But I think, Watson, that we shall be able to strike deeper still. But we shall have horrors enough before the night is over. For goodness sake, let us have a quiet pipe and turn our minds for a few hours to something more cheerful. About 9 o'clock, the light among the trees was extinguished, and all was dark in the direction of the manor house. 2 hours passed slowly, and then suddenly, just as at the stroke of 11, a single light shone out right in front of us. "That's our signal," said Holmes. So they see the candle in the window. Springing, it comes from the middle window. As we passed out, we exchanged a few words with the landlord, explaining that we were going on a late visit to an acquaintance, and that it was possible that we might spend the night there. A moment later, we were out on the dark road, a chill wind blowing in our faces, and one yellow light twinkling in front of us through the gloom to guide us on our sober errand. There was little difficulty in entering the grounds, for unrepaired breaches in the old wall. Making our way among the trees, we reached the lawn, crossed it, and were about to enter through the window, when out from a clump of bushes there darted what seemed to be a hideous and distorted child, who threw itself on the grass with limbs and then ran swiftly across the lawn in the darkness. "My God!" I whispered. "Did you see it?" Holmes was for a moment as startled as I. His hand closed. Then he broke into a laugh. Then he put his lips to my ear and whispered, "It's a nice household. That is the baboon." I had forgotten the strange pets which the doctor affected. There was a cheetah, too. Perhaps we might find it upon our shoulders at any moment. I confess that I felt easier in my mind when, after following Holmes' example and slipping off my shoes, I found myself inside the bedroom. So they're trying to be so quiet that they even took off their shoes before climbing through the window. Why do you think they took off their shoes before climbing in the window? If you thought because it made it quieter, you're absolutely correct. Took off their shoes, so no noise climbing through the window at all. I found myself inside the bedroom. My companion noiselessly closed the shutters, moved the lamp onto the table, and cast his eyes around the room. All was as we had seen it in the daytime. Then creeping up to me and making a trumpet of his hand, he whispered into my ear. So they're trying to be so quiet that he's even cupped his hand around Holmes's ear so he can whisper. The least sound would be fatal to our plans. I nodded to show that I had heard. We must sit without a light. He would see it through the ventilator. I nodded again. Do not go to sleep. Your very life may depend upon it. Have your pistol ready in case we should need it. I will sit on the side of the bed, and you in that chair. I took out my revolver and laid it on the corner of the table. Holmes had brought up a long, thin cane, and this he placed on the bed beside him. And you know, one of those walking canes, not necessarily a cane like a grandpa uses, but like somebody who's sophisticated and stuff, having a cane to walk with. So, and it's, you know, those kind of canes are really strong and either really hard wood or even metal, you know, to sit beside him on the bed. By it, he laid the box of matches and a stub of a candle. So he's laying matches and a candle beside him so he can light it real fast. They're going to turn off all the lights. Excuse me. Then he turned down the lamp, and we were left in darkness. How shall I ever forget that dreadful vigil? I could not hear a sound, not even the breath. Yet I knew that my companion sat open-eyed within a few feet of me, in the same state of nervous tension in which I was myself. Excuse me. The shutters cut off the least ray of light, and we waited in absolute darkness. So they've closed, not only they closed the windows, but they closed the shutters on the windows. That's like drawing the curtains, but these are wooden. They shut shutters. They turned off, blew out all the candles. They're in pure darkness. From outside came the occasional cry of a night bird, and once at our very window a long-drawn cat-like whine, which told us that the cheetah was indeed nearby. Far away we could hear the deep tones of the parish clock, which boomed out every quarter of an hour. How long they seemed, those quarters. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3. And still we sat waiting silently for whatever might befall. Suddenly there was a momentary gleam of light up in the direction of the ventilator, which vanished immediately, but was succeeded by a strong smell of burning oil and heated metal. Someone in the next room had lit a dark lantern. I heard a gentle sound of movement, and then all was silent once more, though the smell grew stronger. For half an hour I sat with straining ears. Then suddenly another sound became audible, a very gentle, soothing sound like that of a small jet of steam escaping from a kettle. You can't do it. The instant we heard it, Holmes sprang out of bed, struck the match, and lashed furiously with the cane at the bell rope. So Holmes heard this whistle just like Watson did. He grabbed his cane and he's hitting the bell rope with the cane. As he's doing this, the candle's being lit. "You see it, Watson," he yelled. "You see it." But I saw nothing. At the moment when Holmes struck the light, I heard a low, clear whistle, but the sudden glare flashing into my weary eyes made it impossible for me to tell what was at which my friend was lashing so savagely. I could, however, see that his face was deadly pale and filled with horror and loathing. So something scared Holmes, and he's hitting the bell rope with the cane. He had ceased to strike, so it means he stopped swinging, and was gazing up at the ventilator, when suddenly there broke from the silence of the night the most horrible cry to which I had ever heard. It swelled up louder and louder, a hoarse yell of pain and fear and anger, all mingled in one dreadful shriek. They say that down in the village, and even in the distant parish, that cry raised sleepers from their beds. So they heard a horrible shriek, a horrible cry from the doctor's bedroom, and it was so loud and so horrible that people down in the village woke up from their sleep because they heard it. It struck cold in our hearts, and I stood gazing at Holmes and he at me until the last echoes of it died away into the silence from which it rose. "What can it mean?" I asked. "It means that's all over," said Holmes. "And perhaps, after all, it is for the best. Take your pistol, and we shall enter Dr. Roylott's room." With a grave face, we lit the lamp and led the way down the corridor. Twice, Holmes struck the chamber door without any reply from within. So that means he knocked at the bedroom door twice, and no answer. Then he turned the handle and entered. I at his heels with the cocked pistol in my hand. It was a singular sight which met our eyes. On the table stood a dark lantern with the shutter half open, throwing a brilliant beam of light upon the iron safe, the door of which was ajar. So remember that iron safe that was like the size of a table? The lantern is on it, but how you can make the shutters, like a camping lantern, you can make the shutters at different angles. It's only hitting on the safe, and the safe's door is open. Beside the table, on the wooden chair, sat Dr. Grimsby Roylott, clad in a long gray dressing gown, his bare ankles protruding beneath, and his feet thrust into red heelless Turkish slippers. Across his lap lay the short stock with the long leash, which we had noticed during the day. Remember that leash that was tied up on himself? It's on the doctor's lap. His chin was cocked upwards like this, and his eyes were rolled back in the top of his head. What do you think? Do you think he's alive? Around his brow, means around the top of his head, he had a peculiar yellow band. So think about it. His head's turned and his eyes are rolled back in his head, so obviously he's dead. But around his brow, around his head, is a yellow band. Remember the speckled band at the beginning of even the title of the story? Around his brow he had a peculiar yellow band with brownish speckles, which seemed to be bound tight around his head. As we entered, he made neither sound nor motion. "The band! The speckled band!" said Holmes. I took a step forward. In an instant, this strange headgear, that means a thing around his head, began to move. And there reared itself from among his head was a square diamond-shaped head and puffed neck of a loathing serpent. So what was the speckled band around his head? A snake, a deadly snake, you know. "It's a swamp adder," said Holmes, "the deadliest snake in India. He has died within 10 seconds of being bitten. Violence does, in truth, recoil upon the violent, and the schemer falls into the pit which he digs for another. Let us thrust this creature back into its den, and we can then remove Miss Stoner to some place of shelter, and let the county police know what has happened." As he spoke, he threw the dog whip swiftly from the dead man's lap, and throwing the noose around the reptile's neck, he threw it from its horrid perch, and carrying it at arm's length, threw it into the iron safe, which he closed upon it. So that's why the leash was tied to a small knot. He used it as a leash for a snake, not for a dog. Get it? And he threw it. And so Holmes grabbed it, got the snake, and threw it into the safe. That's where the snake was living, was in that safe. He closed the door. Such are the true facts of the death of Dr. Grimsby Roylott of Stoke Moran. So how did the doctor die? Do you get it? They heard the whistle. Sherlock Holmes hit the rope with his cane, because what was the cane? What was the rope really for? It wasn't for a bell pull to ring a bell. It was it was a bridge for the snake. The sister and now Miss Stoner could not move the bed because it was nailed to the floor, so it always had to be next to the rope. Snake goes down the rope, through the ventilator, to the rope and when he hit the rope, the snake went back up, didn't it? And through the ventilator and attacked the bad guy. Such are the true facts of the death of Dr. Grimsby Roylott of Stoke Moran. It is not necessary that I should prolong a narrative which has already run to too great a length, by telling how we broke the sad news to the terrified girl, how we conveyed her by the morning train to the care of her good aunt in Harrow, of how the slow process of official inquiry came to the conclusion that the doctor met his fate while indiscreetly playing with a dangerous pet. That's not really how he died, was it? The little which I had yet to learn of the case was told to me by Sherlock Holmes as we traveled back the next day. So as they were going home, Sherlock Holmes tells you all that happened. "I had," said Sherlock, "come to an entirely erroneous conclusion, which shows, my dear Watson, how dangerous it always is to reason from insufficient data. The presence of the gypsies and the use of the word band, which was used by the poor girl, no doubt to explain the appearance which she had caught a horrible glimpse of by the light of her match, were sufficient to put me upon an entirely wrong scent. I can only claim the merit that I instantly reconsidered my position when, however, it became clear to me that whatever danger threatened an occupant of the room could not come either from the window or the door. My attention was speedily drawn, as I have already remarked to you, to the ventilator, and to the bell rope which hung down at the bed. The discovery that it was a dummy rope and that the bed was clamped to the floor instantly gave rise to the suspicion that the rope was there as a bridge for something passing through the hole and coming to the bed. The idea of a snake instantly occurred to me. When I coupled it with my knowledge that the doctor was furnished with a supply of creatures from India, remember the baboon and the cheetah, I felt that I was probably on the right track. The idea of using a form of poison which could not possibly be discovered by any chemical test was just such a one as would occur to a clever and ruthless man who had an Eastern training. Remember, 1800s, they didn't have a full knowledge of poisons that weren't from that country. So if you lived in England, they knew about poisons from England, but they didn't know about deadly animals from other countries, that poison. I have to find where I'm at. The rapid with which such a poison could take effect would also, from his point of view, be an advantage. It would be a sharp-eyed coroner, indeed, who could distinguish the two little dark punctures which would show where the poison fangs had done their work. Then I thought of the whistle. Remember the high-pitched whistle like that of a kettle? Of course, he must recall the snake before the morning light revealed it to be the victim. He had trained it. He trained it by a whistle. He had trained it probably by the use of the milk, which we saw, remember the milk in the saucer, to return to him when summoned or when whistled. He would put it through the ventilator at the hour that he thought best, with the certainty that it would crawl down the rope and land on the bed. It might or might not bite the occupant. Perhaps she might escape every night for a week. But sooner or later, she must fall a victim. I had come to these conclusions before ever I had entered his room. An inspection of his chair showed me that he had been in the habit of standing on it, which of course would be necessary in order that he should reach the ventilator, because he had to stand on the chair to open the ventilator to put the snake in. Get it? The side of the safe, the saucer of milk, and the loop of the whipcord were enough to finally dispel any doubts which may have remained. The metallic clang heard by Miss Stoner was obviously caused by her father hastily closing the door of his safe upon its terrible occupant. Having once made up my mind, you know the steps which I took in order to put the matter to proof. I heard the creature hiss, as I have no doubt you did also, and I instantly lit the light and attacked it. Remember that, striking the cane? With the result of driving it through the ventilator, and also with the result of causing it to turn upon its master on the other side, because he made the snake really mad by hitting it with the cane, and the snake was still coiled on the rope. So what do you think the snake did? It got hit by the cane going down, so it's going to go straight back up, ain't it? Going to go up through the ventilator and fall on the doctor. And he's already mad about being hit, so he's going to take out his madness on who? The bad guy. Some of the blows of my cane came home and roused its snakish temper, so that it flew upon the first person it saw. In this way, I'm no doubt indirectly responsible for Dr. Grimsby Roylott's death, and I cannot say that is likely to weigh very heavily upon my conscience. If you liked this Sherlock Holmes story, remember, they're not long. I had intended to only do 2 segments. Because of a phone call, I had to do 3. I apologize, but still, not long at all to read a good story. Go to Barnes & Noble, go to your local library, check out another Sherlock Holmes book. I guarantee you will not regret reading it. Thank you, and remember, Miss Riddle loves you.